O eternal and almighty God, from whom all power and wisdom come, we are assembled here before thee to frame such laws as may tend to the welfare and prosperity of our province. Grant, O merciful God, we pray thee, that we may desire only that which is in accordance with thy will, that we may seek it with wisdom and know it with certainty and accomplish it perfectly, for the glory and honor of thy name and the welfare of all our people. Amen. We acknowledge we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory, and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota Oete, Dene Sulene, and Neothoric nations. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making, and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Please be seated. The Honourable Official Opposition House Leader.
Yeah, on a point of a matter of privilege for the member for Interlake Gimli.
The Honourable Member for Interlake Gimli on a matter of privilege.
Honourable Speaker, I rise on a matter of privilege, and I will attempt to keep my remarks brief but thorough. As we all know, for a matter to be considered, it must pass two tests. It must be the first available opportunity for me to rise on this matter, and it must be a prima facie breach of my privileges. On this first test, I will show that it is indeed the first available opportunity for me to rise. On May 28th, during orders of the day, the member for Riel tabled a complaint that he filed with the Ethics Commissioner. The Conflict of Interest Act has a remedy for addressing false and baseless complaints, so we will address that in due time. But all throughout question period, the Premier and many ministers made reference to this complaint and used strong language. It is important to note that not a member of that caucus would repeat their statements without the protection of parliamentary immunity. I find myself once again turning to the wisdom we have available in Boston Gagno's House of Commons Procedures and Practice, 3rd edition. In 1987, Speaker Fraser stated, "The privileges of a member are violated by any action which might impede him or her in the fulfillment of his or her duties and functions. It is obvious that the unjust damaging of a reputation could constitute such an impediment. The normal course of a member who felt himself or herself to be defamed would be the same that is available to any other citizen, recourse to the courts under the laws of defamation with the possibility of damages to substitute for the harm that might be done. However, should the alleged defamation take place in the floor of the House, this recourse is not available. Well, Honourable Speaker, I think you will find that throughout question period, the Premier, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Health, and the Minister of Education all used language to attack my reputation. Yet, not one of these members would stand in front of media and repeat those claims, and when asked about some of this specific allegations by the Winnipeg Free Press, the Premier directed them to his comments on Hansard. Why, you may ask? It's because if he repeated those claims, I would, as Speaker Fraser outlined, have recourse. Speaker Sauvé ruled on this matter as well, and I read from her summary. Not only do defamatory allegations about members place the entire institution of Parliament under a cloud, they also prevent members from performing their duties as long as the matter remains unresolved. since, as one authority states, such allegations bring members into hatred, contempt, or ridicule. The member of Riel has every right to make his request of the Commissioner, but there is a reason that the Act has a section for addressing false allegations. The Premier continued his comments into Committee of Supply, but again would not repeat his charged or inflammatory language outside of his protected space. Honourable Speaker, I have shown that this matter could not be raised at an earlier time, and I have shown that there is a precedent of such claims to be considered as matters of privilege. All that is left for you to rule so we can address this injustice. So I move, seconded by the member for Turtle Mountain, that the member for Fort Rouge, the member for St. James, and the member for Union Station, and the member for Transcona be held in contempt of this House, and the matter referred to an all-party committee for consideration and review.
Before recognizing any other members to speak, I would remind all members to keep their comments relevant to the matter of privilege. The Honourable First Minister.
This is, what I'm about to say is absolutely relevant to this being a matter of privilege, which is that the substantive issue here deals with the former government's attempt to subvert the democratic will of the people by violating the Caretaker Convention during the transition period. What the member for Interlake Gimli is alleging took place here is clearly a dispute over the facts. He has failed to make the case that this approaches anything near defamation, and the fact that he invokes actions which may or may not take place out of the chamber should show to you the frivolous and vexatious nature of this attempted matter of privilege. With all due respect, Honourable Speaker, you do not rule on actions that happen outside of the chamber. Prima facie, on the face of it, clearly anyone would notice that the case he is making falls apart on those grounds. Now, the reason why it is relevant that he is standing in the chamber today and making a frivolous claim to a matter of privilege is because I believe that his true intent is to continue the cover-up by putting this under a matter that you take under advisement, and therefore preventing us, and thereby by extension the people of Manitoba, from further examining this issue. What is the substantive matter at hand that he is alleging is at the heart of this issue? Documents that we have tabled, government documents from before our government was sworn in, that show the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Edit, and the Minister of Ag being cautioned by the former clerk of the Executive Council that they needed to respect the Caretaker Convention. There is nothing defamatory about tabling documents which illustrate facts. There is nothing defamatory about asking questions about those facts, particularly in question period. It's called question period, not answer period. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. This
Order,
is a
please.
substantive issue.
I would remind all members that when we're dealing with a matter of privilege, the speaker that has the floor has to be heard and everyone else needs to sit quietly. The Honourable First Minister.
So there are many substantive issues here. For instance, on the question of a silica mine in eastern Manitoba, why would the Agriculture Minister be involved? But I digress. The substance of the point that I'm trying to make, Honourable Speaker, with the deepest of respect, is that if you take this request for a matter of privilege under advisement, we will not be able to talk about a very serious issue that has to do with the fundamental principle of our democracy, which is respecting the will of the people of Manitoba when they cast their ballots. The previous government clearly tried to disrespect that by rushing through this approval during the caretaker period. That's exactly what all the comments that the member opposite has to refer to here today. So I would beseech you Again, he is within his rights to stand and argue that there is a matter of privilege here at hand, but I would ask that you rule on this matter immediately so that we can continue the discussion of a very important public policy issue, and in the least, that you would provide us with some guidance on how we might govern ourselves in light of what I would say is a very frivolous and vexatious attempt to evade accountability by the member for Interlake Gimli.
I'm going to take a moment to consult with the clerks. Order, please. So I've listened very carefully to both speakers on this matter. It is a new act that we're dealing with, that there's very little, if any, precedence on it. So I am forced to take it under advisement to make sure that we rule appropriately and correctly. And I will advise members that what's being taken under advisement pertains to the information that was tabled yesterday. So that is where it stands, and the Premier was correct that the matter taken under advisement cannot be discussed until my ruling comes on that. So, routine proceedings. Introduction of bills. Committee reports. Order. Tabling of reports. Ministerial statements. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise this afternoon to speak to recent incidents of crime, including retail crime here in Winnipeg. For too long, the acute needs of retailers and communities were ignored by the previous government. 7 long years of frozen funding for law enforcement, ignoring the impacts of addictions, homelessness, and mental health in our communities, and a flat-out refusal from the previous government to work with others has led to the situation unfolding today. We are taking a different approach. Our government will not concede any ground on public safety. Shoplifting, threatening workers, putting businesses, jobs, and families at risk will never be okay. We are addressing the root causes of crime that the previous government ignored. We will end chronic homelessness. We're working with partners to address the toxic drug crisis. And we're investing in mental health supports to build capacity to de-escalate situations. And we are working with law enforcement to make it clear that we stand shoulder to shoulder to preserve and protect the rule of law and public safety. Accordingly, our government is working with the Winnipeg Police Service to immediately enhance our funding, putting more units on the street to immediately increase police resources and address specific areas of need, including retail theft in the coming months. The message to those who feel they can steal and threaten without consequence is simple. While we'll be there to offer support and alternatives if you choose a better path, we will also ensure that there are consequences for your actions. To retailers, to community clubs, to churches, and to everyone who will attend a festival downtown this summer or go to dinner at your local restaurant, our government will work with you every day to keep you safe. We will work alongside you to address the impacts and root causes of crime while we get tough on those bringing chaos into our communities. And to those who work on the front lines, in law enforcement and as first responders, on behalf of our entire team, I extend our sincere appreciation for the work that you do, putting your own safety and well-being on the line to protect our communities. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Brandon West.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I stand before you today to address a matter of utmost importance to all Manitobans, and that is public safety. Our province is renowned for its vast landscapes, rich cultural heritage, and warmth of its people. However, like any community, we face challenges that require our collective efforts and unwavering commitment to ensure the safety and well-being of every resident. Public safety is not merely the absence of crime, it is the presence of justice, fairness, and the assurance that all Manitobans can live without fear. It encompasses the protection of our children, the security of our homes, the integrity of our neighborhoods, and the resilience of our communities. As we are witnessing in real time, we hear the news stories of the increase in violence, the crime and retail crime all across our province, and we must address these issues swiftly. I've been disappointed to see the cuts made recently to public safety. We need to see greater commitments made that will support our communities and better promote public safety. Our law enforcement agencies need our support and resources. The brave women and men who serve as our police officers, our firefighters, our emergency responders, put their lives on the line every day. As the former chief of the Brandon Police Service, I can attest to this need greatly. I have witnessed firsthand the need for resources that must be appropriately supplied to those who put their life on the line for us. Also, investing in mental health services for our law enforcement and first responders so that we can make sure that they are able to attend to the many challenging things that they see, hear, and feel every day. I implore this government to fund properly law enforcement and retail crime and make sure that we have a path forward. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
I ask for leave to respond to the minister's statement.
Does the member from Tyndall Park have leave to respond? Leave has been granted. The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Crime is continuing to grow out of control in Manitoba. We know that brazen theft, vandalism, and carjacking, just for example, have all gone up, and while we discuss addressing the root causes of crime and the impacts of organized crime, we also need to focus on lifting people out of poverty. Unfortunately, blame is often quickly placed on those making bad decisions, and often they are the victims of organized crime and gangs pressured into committing these crimes. Alternatively, they may not have any other options. Over the recent years, we have seen Manitoba liquor marts install systems to track and permit customers. This installment has declined theft significantly, but we do not want all businesses to be forced to take steps such as these. Over the last few weeks, we have seen food fare on Portage Avenue be faced with threats, assaults, and vehicles being torched. Music stores being robbed of over $38,000, and weapons being used to rob small local bakeries. And Honourable Speaker, these recent crimes are just the tip of the iceberg. All over Manitoba, garages and houses continue to be broken into. Vandalism continues to be appearing, and often, at random, people continue to be senselessly attacked. A lot is not working right now. Police are stretched so thin, and while we are fortunate to have groups such as the Barra Clan, we at a provincial level need to do more. One step this government could take is bringing back youth justice committees. But in the meantime, Honourable Speaker, I'd like to thank the Minister for bringing some awareness to this topic through his ministerial statement today and for the opportunity to speak to it. Thank you.
Member statements. The honourable member for Assiniboia.
Honourable Speaker, a couple of weeks ago, I had the honour of attending the Manitowabi Festival at the Red River Exhibition Park, which is in the constituency of Assiniboia. This festival is a multi-day celebration of Indigenous culture, arts, music, and heritage. Each year, a Miss Manitowabi is named, and in 2023, Serene Goodwill was selected. As Miss Manitowabi, Serene participated in events across North America, bringing attention to and honoring the memory of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. While the role of Miss Manitowabi could be challenging, Serene was determined to make the most of her position, using her voice to effect positive change across the country. At the young age of 16, Serene is inspiring the next generation of leaders, innovators, and advocates. As a role model for young girls and women across the province, Serene approached her role with unwavering confidence and grace, speaking up for her community whenever she could. While she recently passed down the title of Miss Manitowabi to 2024's winner, Serene's impact in the community is undeniable. In fully embodying her role, Serene has become a symbol of hope, passion, and resilience for all. As a student of St. James Collegiate, Serene learned under the guidance of Tara Touchier a humanities teacher who incorporates themes of human rights and Indigenous allyship in her lessons. Mrs. Tushier and Serene connected in the classroom and over the MMIWG projects they pursued together. For Mrs. Tushier, supporting and encouraging Serene in her endeavors came easy. For her dedication to teaching and inspiring her students, Mrs. Tushier received this year's Teaching Excellence Award. I ask my colleagues to join me in celebrating the remarkable achievements of Serene Goodwill. It is young leadership like hers that confirms that future of Manitoba is in very capable hands.
The Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. I rise today to honour the Portage Rotary Club. Since the beginning, the Rotary Club has been involved in many community initiatives and projects, including upcoming Rotary Skateboard Park, the Rotary Duck Pond Project, annual Rotary Santa Claus Parade of Lights, various galas, and more. Today, I'd like to highlight the Rotary Exchange Program and the incredible work they do. The Rotary Youth Exchange Program inspires young individuals to become leaders. The program sponsors students between the ages of 15 and 19 that are leaders in their school and communities in more than 100 countries, and provides the opportunity for students to learn a new language, discover and learn new cultures, develop leadership skills, and become global citizens. Students have the opportunity to choose between a long-term exchange where they stay for the school year and attend classes and live with host families, whereas the short terms varies from a couple of weeks to months. Joining us in the gallery today is the Beers family from Portage-La Prairie that are hosting a young student, Mykola Belizniak, from Ivano-Fransvik, Ukraine. The Beers family enjoy hosting Mykola and seeing him thrive in school and community, while also showing him all of the beautiful things that Portage-La Prairie has to offer. Please join me in thanking Chris, Heike, Oliver, and Dominic Beers for all their hard work and dedication in hosting Mykola. Welcome to our beautiful province of Manitoba, Mykola. Yaku.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's an honour to rise today and recognize TJ Gifts Foundation and their 2024 Champion Award recipients. Established in 2006, the foundation was created in honour of the late TJ Weeb, a brother, a son whose kindness, love, and passion was felt by all who knew him. TJ's tragic death inspired the Weeb family to support other youth who are struggling with addictions. Karen and Floyd Weeb and the many volunteers of TJ's Gift Foundation have empowered thousands of youth and their families across Manitoba. For the last 2 decades, the foundation has promoted awareness for living for youth to live drug-free through development of resources for youth, hosting workshops, as well as supporting families who are navigating the justice system. Earlier this month, I had the privilege of attending the 18th annual TJ's Gala Dinner. The gala includes the important recognition of those in our community who have helped our young people avoid or recover from drug involvement. The 2024 TJ's Champion Award recipients are Mitch Bourbonnier, Matthew Willem, Richard Walls, Stacy and Kelsey Lafreniere, and Brian and Linda Gray. This year's recipients included community leaders, healthcare professionals, trauma-informed care providers, organization founders, and grassroots organizers. I also want to recognize Karen, the late Floyd Weeb and their family for the empathy and vulnerability they have shared with Manitobans through TJ's Gift Foundation. Please join me in thanking Karen, who is also the Executive Director of the Manitoba Organization for Victim Assistance, and her family who are here today, as well as congratulating the 2024 TJ Champion Award recipients who have also joined us today. Thank you for your amazing hard work. We lift you up and send you our love and gratitude for all of the work that you are doing in our community. May God.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk. Oh, sorry. The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Ask for leave for my guests' names to be entered into Hansard. Immediately after my member statement.
Is there leave? Agreed. The Honourable Member for Selkirk.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Once again, I'm very proud to rise and give tribute to an amazing member of the Selkirk community. Dr. Anthony Inozi, who joins us with his wife Sue in the gallery today, has a profound impact on the healthcare provided to the citizens of Selkirk and the Interlake region. Attending medical school along with surgical training in the United Kingdom, followed by additional training in Australia, Dr. Inozi called Manitoba home in 1997. Starting in family medicine, he serviced the areas of Arbor, Veeder, Framness, Gaser, Ochno, to name a few. In 2002, Dr. Inozi moved his practice to the city of Selkirk, where he continued his career now as a surgeon, first operating in the old Selkirk Hospital, and now in the beautiful state-of-the-art Selkirk and District Hospital built under the PC government. Always looking for ways to improve our healthcare, Dr. Inozi embarked on an incredible journey of recruitment, design, planning, and perseverance, overcoming regulatory and physical obstacles to open Easton Place. Easton Place is named after Selkirk's renowned Dr. Easton, who served the area for decades. It is a 20,000 square foot facility. The facility has 7 doctors, over 11 direct healthcare staff, countless support staff, a dental office, audiology facility, minor operational surgical clinic, family practice, walk-in clinic, lymphedema treatment center, massage center, pharmacy, and more. Throughout his career, Dr. Inozi has been active in the recruitment and retention of doctors and specialists in the medical field. His vision has placed Selkirk in a class of its own. Please join me today to honor this incredible man for what he has done and the lives that he has changed up for so many. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This is my last member statement before the House rises for the summer, and I always like to use this as an opportunity to summarize the past few months and highlight some of the positive happenings here in these chambers. And there is a lot to share this session. Over the last few months, we have debated everything from healthcare to children in care to affordability. And I've had the honor of hosting many guests here at the Legislature, including Tyndall Park School, Meadows West School, Maples Collegiate, Hoffman's Fine Foods, Needs Incorporated, Mabuhay, a new musical, and quite a few different women's shelters and resource centers in support of Bill 209. Now, Honourable Speaker, a lot can happen over the course of a year. And I want to start by sharing something about our clerk, Rick Yerish. Over the past year, Rick faced a significant health challenge, but thanks to some great care, he is very happy to be healthy and cancer-free. Honourable Speaker, there's a lot going on. The member for Fort Garry's daughter is graduating. The member from Interlake Gimli's son is about to get married. The member for Seine River has a brand new grandson. The member for Dawson Trail became a first-time grandpa to a little one named Jasper. And the member from Springfield Rashad also became a first-time Opa to a little one named Tamira. And Honorable Speaker, there truly are babies everywhere. And that is why I too am super excited to announce that I am 4 months pregnant. And as our spring session wraps up, I just wanted to end on a positive note. I want to thank all the staff here at the Legislative Building and wish all of my colleagues a wonderful and safe summer. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Before we move on to oral questions, there are several guests in the gallery. First, we have in the public gallery from Greenland School, 15 grade 7 to 9 students under the direction of Lyle Toes, their guests of the Honorable Member for Dawson Trail. We welcome you all here today. We're also joined today by 48 students from Ebb and Flow School, accompanied by teachers Stacy and Selena Hole and Ebb and Flow Fire Chief Darcy Hole. They're guests of the Honorable Member for Dauphin. I would also like to draw the attention of all honorable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today Amber Trail Schools teacher Sarah Martin and students Marcus and Jai. They're guests of the Honorable Member for Burroughs. On behalf of all honorable members, we welcome you here today. I would also like to draw the attention of all honorable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today Susan Mitchell, who is the guest of the Honorable Member for Assiniboia. On behalf of all honorable members, we welcome you here today. I would also like to draw the attention of all honorable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today the executive of CUPE Local 998, Michelle Bergen, Gord Manier, Mike Crowley, Mike Kurbranovich, Brianna Cohen, Natalie Sinclair, Stefan Tirichow Parrott, Johnny Maria, Jason Pintin, who are guests of the Honorable Member for St. James. On behalf of all honorable members, we welcome you here today. Sadly, we also have to say farewell to some more of our pages. Today, we have 2 legislative pages completing their final shift. We have Ubar Bohadi, who will be graduating this June. Ubar has been a French immersion student since preschool and wishes to continue her studies in French. That is why she will be studying at College St. Boniface this fall. She will be doing a 3-year general science program while also minoring in political science. She hopes to obtain her bachelor's degree to then further her education in the years following that. Ubar knows that starting university will be a big change, but working as a page at the Legislature has prepared her to experience things outside of her comfort zone. Although the election did postpone her time as a page, Ubar has learned so much in her few months here and will carry these lessons with her into the future. Ubar would like to give a big thank you to everyone in the Legislature for their patience and kindness. The kindness she experienced here in the Legislature is something she will never forget and will hold on to this memory. Having to hand in her keys will be a little bittersweet moment for Ubar, but she hopes to be back in the future. Ubar is joined today by her mother, Bushra Munstarak, her father Abdul Buhardi, brother Ahmed Buhardi, friend Sarah Hanslip, and cousin Sam Elmazi. She hopes you to see you all soon, maybe even as an MLA. Congratulations, Ubar. We wish you all the best in your endeavors. Also, we have Ivana Ivanovska. Will be graduating from College Bellevue this June. Thanks to her hard work and drive, to her academics, after-school activities, and sports, she will continue by attending McGill University in Montreal, studying computer science program. She would like to give a special thank you to the PAGE program and everybody involved within by helping her grow as a person and mentoring her, as well as for the kindness everybody has shown her as she navigated her way throughout. She is very grateful for the many new things that the program has taught her, from life lessons to how provincial governments run and how it affects our society. Ivan is joined by her parents, Monica and Rishchiyun, younger sister and possibly future page, Mia. In all, this is an incredible experience that she will never forget, and she will be sure to carry on everything that she has learned in the future. She's excited to begin the next chapter in her life and wishes everyone the very best. Congratulations. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Yesterday, I asked the Premier what he was going to do for Manitoba businesses that are fighting for their very existence with property crime and retail theft growing increasingly more brazen. And this Premier could only talk about rumor and innuendo, which is nothing new for you-know-who, the MLA for Fort Rouge. So I have to ask him again. This is incredibly important, so I asked the member for St. John's to listen to the question. What is he or his government doing now for businesses that are losing thousands and thousands of dollars a month to crime?
The Honourable First Minister.
I want to thank the Minister of Justice for preemptively answering this set of questions from the member opposite. What our government is doing is investing additional resources into law enforcement to help us combat the scourge of retail theft over the coming summer months as we continue to invest in things like the prenatal benefit and universal child nutrition program, which will prevent more young people from going down a negative path in the future.
That's right.
I want to take some time today to thank our pages and to say félicitations and congratulations on all that's coming next. And I also want to take this moment to congratulate on the record the MLA for Tyndall Park for her important announcement. You are about to go through a journey that I'm sure will be very meaningful as you welcome your first child into this world and potentially, judging by recent history, maybe one day a future MLA too.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, until this Premier shows the courage of his many, many convictions and repeats his claims without parliamentary privilege, we have all know that he doesn't believe in what he is trying to sell to Manitobans. But this isn't about political games he's playing, because he is embarrassed to be caught up trying to push through bills through undemocratically the BITSA bill because his House Leader couldn't get organized and introduce them in the chamber on time. This is about Manitobans, and they can't wait. They are over 200 days, the NDP are over 200 days to even pretend to unveil their first 100-day strategy. What is the Premier doing to address crime and public safety today?
There you go.
The Honourable First Minister.
As we've said today, we're investing new resources in law enforcement to respond over the coming summer months to what has been a scourge of retail theft, while we continue to invest in prevention measures to make our community safer.
That's right.
But when you want to talk about dodging questions, the one question that's on the top of all political observers' minds is why did the former PC government after they lost power and before our administration was sworn in, try to ram through the approval of a silica sand mine. Yesterday, the member opposite went into the hallway and held a press conference on the topic, and he said, I quote, "The ethics commissioner has that document as well," end quote. How does he know what the ethics commissioner has in his possession or not?
Great question.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
Once again, Honourable Speaker, very important questions on crime and public safety, and this Premier stands up once again and dodges and deflects on the question.
He's above the law.
He needs to respect Manitobans, and yesterday I asked a series of serious questions about a young Manitoban that the child welfare system had failed. I asked him why he and his minister were content with letting service that failed to investigate itself with no public scrutiny. And this Premier only wants to sling partisan attacks. It is beneath the office of the Premier. It's beneath him as a person. We're asking important questions on behalf of Manitobans, and he has to take his job seriously. One business owner reports police told him, quote, "We'll have to send someone out there if we're not too busy," end quote. Now this Premier wants them to wait more because he has no solution. Easy question for the Premier. Say what he is doing today or admit that he is not up for the job. Which is it, Honourable Speaker?
The Honourable First Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. For the third time this afternoon, we're investing additional resources. We're talking about 4 additional units. The overtime is being funded from our administration to respond to retail theft. Beyond that, we continue to invest in prevention measures to keep more young people on a positive path here in Manitoba. Yesterday, the member opposite went into the hallway and called a press conference to respond to the question of why his administration, after they lost power, wanted to ram through a silica sand mine. This is disrespect for the democratic will of the people of Manitoba. But he went on in his scrum to say that the Ethics Commissioner has access to information that was the subject of this conversation yesterday. I'd like him to explain to the House, for all Manitobans, how does he know what information the Ethics Commissioner has access to when it comes to the question of them trying to ram through a project after they'd lost government?
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a new question.
Honourable Speaker, this Premier has a track record of only consulting with Manitobans after he has made up his mind. This mentality is being passed along to school divisions. Parents in the River East Transcona school divisions were not consulted about substantial catchment area changes, but instead offered a meeting after the decision had already been made. Let's start off easy for the Premier. Does he believe school boards have a responsibility to consult with families before making such massive changes to children's lives and education?
The Honourable First Minister.
We respect the democratically elected trustees who make decisions at school divisions. That's something they never did. In fact, they tried to legislate away through Bill 64 the even existence of school divisions across the province. But when it comes to disrespecting the democratic will of the people, we see that things went a lot more serious than Bill 64, which thankfully the people of Manitoba were able to defeat. They tried to ram through the approval of a silica sand mine in eastern Manitoba after they lost power. The member for Interlake Gimli stands in his place today to discuss the issue, much as he stood in the hallway yesterday to call a press conference on the subject. But when we're talking about a silica sand mine that would be approved by the Department of the Environment, I think the question he ought to be contemplating an answer to today is, why was the Minister of Agriculture involved in this conversation at all?
That's right. That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And next answer, I want the Premier to stand up, look in the camera, and say to Manitobans that he just wasn't ready for the job. We're ready on this side to be back in government. We are the government in waiting. parents have childcare arrangements that are based off their children's school schedules. Changing that will have massive repercussions and is putting undue stress and hardships on families. The school division had an information session with parents after the decision had already been made and was only accepting pre-screened questions. Many parents have important questions that weren't answered and join us today in the gallery. So I ask this Premier on their behalf, don't the most important decisions call for the greatest degree of consultation and engagement with stakeholders?
No, he has to.
The Honourable First Minister.
Absolutely. When it comes to parents, when it comes to children, when it comes to education, your voice matters. And on this side of the House, we have a firm belief of trust. It's an attitude that when you bring an educator, a child, a parent together, that they can form a consensus about the best interests of the child. And our Minister of Education, our government, will be happy to meet with parents to advance that shared interest. That is directly at odds with their divisive rhetoric around parental rights. But when it comes to that election topic and others which led to their defeat, how is it that they found the temerity to attempt to ram through the approval of a silica sand mine on the following Friday, after they had been handed a message by the people of Manitoba? The member opposite, in a scrum yesterday, said that the Ethics Commissioner had certain information. In the same scrum, the member for Interlake Gimli also made claims about this information being available to everybody over however many months, he said.
His
The question,
time has expired.
how did he know?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And once again, as I've said multiple times, we are working with the Ethics Commissioner and we're following process, something that this Premier refuses to do, that's following either court processes or any other process that he's had challenges with for his entire life. The fact of the matter is the Premier and his Minister have a responsibility to step in and ensure that parents in River East Transcona are appropriately represented by their board and that decisions are being made in a transparent manner. Many parents understand the underlying premise of the need. We all know the NDP refused to build new schools, and then shortly after they got elected, they canceled 9 more. Parents understand, but ask for consideration for grandfathering to allow their kids to continue on in the school communities and classrooms their kids know and appreciate. Does the Premier think this is an unreasonable request? And because it isn't, will he direct his minister to ensure they can stay?
The Honourable First Minister.
You know, I'm not going to prejudge any conversation with parents and direct my minister to do anything at this point. You see, the thing is, I have committed that our government will take a meeting. We'll hear the concerns. We'll work with parents, educators, children, school division officials to come up with a positive path forward. But I really want to emphasize the point that I will not direct a minister. There's an open question about whether Heather Stephenson directed ministers to approve this silica sand mine. We know that there were people here, such as the former Minister for Economic Development, Investment and Trade, the former Finance Minister, who were caught up in these sorts of conversations. Former members of the PC Cabinet, Rochelle Squires, Kevin Klein, they all said that this project approval being rammed through was inappropriate. The question for the members opposite is why? Which interest were they furthering in rushing the approval? Was it a public interest or a private interest?
That's right.
Order, please. I would just caution members that we're getting dangerously close to talking about matters that are taken under advisement. So I just caution all members to be very careful in that. The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods.
Many parents of children currently attending a Coal Sun Valley School and Robert Andrews Middle School found out their children are no longer able to attend their current school due to catchment changes, separating students from lifelong friends and moving them out of their home communities. The Minister of Education has shown that he has no problem summoning a school board into his office when he disagrees with their decisions. So I have to ask this minister, when did he summon the River East Transcona School Board to his office? Or does he agree with their approach of keeping parents in the dark until this decision was made?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I do want to thank the member for that question because it will allow us to look at the process that needs to be undertaken in order for this to be taken care of properly. As this member probably doesn't know, that the best place to do this and to understand this is at the school board level. We trust school boards to, of course, consult with parents. We expect that they will go out of their way to not only consult, but also inform parents of very important decisions before they even get to that point. Here's the other important piece. We work with school boards just like parents work with school boards every day for the betterment of a student's experience at school. That's the number one piece. That's always been the foundational piece, and I'm sure
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods on a supplementary question.
We've heard in this chamber before that grandfathering is the most appropriate solution. And if it's not an option, the division has a responsibility to explain that to parents in a respectful manner. Considering one of the biggest concerns that parents have is the availability of childcare, especially with hundreds of families now competing for limited spaces, what is this minister going to do to ensure that additional spaces are available for these families in the new areas that their children are being moved to?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Again, I do want to thank the member for that question because it does allow us to reiterate our plan regarding childcare and, of course, in working with school divisions. Those two work hand in hand. But here's also the very important piece. We have very important investments, Honourable Speaker, in this budget that looks at childcare and invests in childcare. A 5% increase in the daily operating costs, an increase to wages in order to keep childcare workers in their places. The other part that's also really, really important is we've added professional development days so that not only can they continue their training, but also provide the best possible care for our youngest learners in those centers. We will continue to invest in this sector, something they never did.
The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods on a final supplementary question.
It's not just those two schools that are impacted with this recent announcement. The division's plan will have a dramatic change on Birds Hill School, where catchment area changes to accommodate the change to dual track will rip apart classrooms and have a large impact on children. All of this was decided without community consultation or input, and when the community raised well-researched and articulated concerns, they were ignored. This minister can do the right thing and give these families a chance to have a say in their children's education. Will he or does he agree with the process as it's unfolded?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Again, I do want to thank the member for that question because, as always, we were always willing and continue to be willing to meet with parents. We have yet to receive any kind of information regarding a meeting that they've requested with myself and my department. Once we do receive that request, and even right after question period today, Honourable Speaker, I'd be willing to meet with those parents right here in the rotunda, have a real fulsome discussion, and set up a meeting later on so that we can not only dialogue about these concerns, but help them with their concerns. That's something that we will always do. That's something they never did.
The Honourable Member for Roblin.
1 in 8 women in Canada will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime, and the incidence of breast cancer in women under the age of 50 has increased significantly in recent years. Earlier this month, the Canadian Cancer Society urged all provinces to lower the age for breast cancer screening to 40. Every other province in Canada has either already lowered the screening age or announced a plan to do so. Early screening means more cases get caught sooner and more lives can be saved. This is not political. This is the right thing to do for Manitoba women. Every other province has moved on lowering the breast cancer screening age. Will the Minister of Health make a plan to lower the screening age for breast cancer to age 40 immediately?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member for that question. On this side of the House, we believe in investing and strengthening women's health care. We believe in supporting women and those who need this health care across the province. For 7.5 years, the previous government cut women's health care across this province in a myriad of different ways. We have been working very closely with Cancer Care Manitoba. We've met with the National Cancer Society across the country. We've met with many folks on this particular issue to not only look at the age standards that are set, but to also look at ways that we can continue to enhance these services.
The Honourable Member for Roblin on a supplementary question.
In letters sent to breast cancer advocates in Manitoba, which I will table, officials from the Minister of Health's office said they will consider lowering the screening age if guidelines change or new evidence becomes available. I'll also table data gathered by Dr. Jean Seeley, a professor of radiology at the University of Ottawa. Women in their 40s who get a mammogram have a 44% lower mortality rate from breast cancer. Screening women from the ages of 40 to 74 is estimated to save the Canadian healthcare system hundreds of millions of dollars and tens of thousands of lives. How much more evidence does the Minister of Health need?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
I think by the member's own statements, she recognizes that I do in fact take this issue very seriously. She's well aware that we're working with partners, not just in Manitoba, but across the country, to develop an approach that will serve Manitoba women and those who need this care as well as possible. We've already invested resources in expanding access to this care in the Prairie Mountain Health region. We're actively working with Shared Health to onboard more technologists to provide this service, and we're going to continue to listen to the voices of women in this province, something that didn't happen for over 7 years under the previous government, where all they cared about was attacking women's health care across our province, and we're still paying the price for it. We're going to continue to clean up their mess and take an approach Manitobans deserve.
The Honourable Member for Roblin on a final supplementary question.
The Minister didn't answer this question, so I'll put it on the record. Manitoba is waiting for a recommendation from the Canadian Task Force on Preventative Health Care to take any action on screening age. But both the Canadian Cancer Society and the Nurse Practitioner Association of Canada have withdrawn their support of this task force. The data shows that outcomes are better for women with lower screening ages. Breast cancer rates continue to rise, and the average age at diagnosis continues to fall. Manitoba women cannot afford for this minister to keep waiting. Every other province has moved on this issue without waiting for the task force. Why is the minister waiting to do the right thing for Manitoba women?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
I would encourage that member to do a bit more research on this very important aspect of healthcare. It's important to note that where areas have been lowered, and in Manitoba we're actively exploring this in the path forward, that when you increase access in some cases, we actually see folks who need this care at older stages, who are very sick, not being able to access that care because of capacity challenges. In Manitoba, we are going to take a responsible, thought out, and informed approach to make sure that women not only get access to this care, but we have a comprehensive strategy that meets the needs across various demographics of all backgrounds and all communities. That member opposite is part of a team that cut women's health care for over 7.5 years. She has no credibility on this issue, and I encourage her to get better informed.
The Honourable Member for Fort White.
Honourable Speaker, the NDP have broken yet another promise. When they ran on freezing hydro rates, yet they are actually increasing them to 4%, all hidden within this budget bill. The NDP fired the hydro CEO and hired a new special energy advisor that loves the carbon tax. He wants to raise fuel taxes to even higher levels, all the while banning natural gas for home heating in Manitoba. Let's be clear, the NDP voted against letting Manitobans have their say. And now they have buried powers within this budget bill to raise fuel taxes at the cabinet table. Is the minister planning on using these new powers to raise fuel taxes on Manitobans at the cabinet table? And if not, why even have it in there?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. There's only one party in this legislature that has voted in support of a carbon tax in Manitoba, and that's the members opposite. That's right. That's their record, and Manitobans know that. For 7.5 years, they did the work of making life more expensive, whether it was finding new ways of legislating hydro rate increases or otherwise. And when it comes to energy development, they did absolutely nothing for 7.5 years. Not a single megawatt was created under the previous government. They sat on their hands, no plan, no vision. What did we do? As soon as we got in, we brought $500 million of investment to expand generation in Manitoba. We're going to keep doing that work to make sure we have the energy we need for generations to come.
The Honourable Member for Fort White on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, not only did this minister not answer now question number 85 in a row for me, he's putting misleading information on the record. When he says the previous government, how many megawatts did they create? The previous PC government generated 700 megawatts compared to this NDP. They have no plan for the future, no plan on how to help Manitobans, and they have no plan on how to govern accordingly. This minister has gone on the record and said that they have no plan. Will the minister just come clean today and say that hidden within this budget bill is authority for him to raise the fuel tax at the cabinet table? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Again, as I've said in this House before, we're doing that important work of bringing together folks to develop an energy policy that will make sure we can provide affordable energy for years to come, and do that while we keep Manitoba Hydro public, something the members opposite never would have protected. But speaking about unanswered questions, the member opposite had some things to say yesterday in relation to the work that the previous government did in trying to ram through a silica sand mine. He said, quote, "Nothing new was presented today. The media has had the documents. The ethics commissioner has the document. Nothing new was said. Nothing new was presented." Well, that doesn't jive, Honourable Speaker, with what we presented. We know that what we brought forward were new names that show the involvement of the member of Interlake Gimli, show the involvement of the member for Red River North.
Order, please. Order, please. I previously asked members to be very cautious about talking about matters I've taken under advisement. I believe the Minister of Finance has stepped over that line. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Red River North.
The question all Manitobans want to know the answer to is, does the member opposite support the actions of his colleagues?
The Honourable Member for Fort White.
Honourable Speaker, 2 questions in a row to the Minister of Finance if he will simply increase the fuel tax at the cabinet table, and he refuses to answer them. He's not answering them because he knows he's going to. That's why he's hidden these authorities within this new BITSA bill. This Premier, this Finance Minister, and the member for Fort Garry have all gone on the record and said previous BITSA bills that do this are undemocratic. But I will table another quote from a member of the opposite side of the House, and that quote says, "So what they've done, what your boss, what your colleagues have done, is to ensure the dismantling of democracy here in Manitoba." End quote. Who said that, Honourable Speaker? The failed government House leader said that. Members on the opposite side of the House have all said it's undemocratic. Why is this minister forcing this through in BITSA? Will the minister say today if he's going to increase the fuel tax?
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
First of all, I want to start by saying how incredible of a job our House leader does each and every single day. We are unbelievably proud to work with that member. That's right. In regards to his comments, he's coming today asking about what we're going to do on a fuel tax. What did we do on the fuel tax? We offered Manitobans a holiday. That's right. We love holidays. 7.5 years, Honorable Speaker. What did they do? They charged that to Manitobans every single day. They were in government for 7.5 years. What did we do right after we got in government? We brought in a holiday that's created the lowest inflation in Canada, the lowest fuel prices in Canada, and some of the lowest food prices in Canada. That's the work we're doing in support of Manitoba.
The honourable member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. With construction season well underway and very few projects seeing action, and a budget that has outlined cuts to capital investment, Manitobans are left wondering which projects will see investment and which will be facing the chopping block. The Minister of Infrastructure has said publicly that her blue ribbon panel would be reviewing the 5-year plan and making changes and suggestions. My question for the Minister is, what projects in the 5-year plan are under review, and when will she share with the public if they have been cut by this NDP government?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, Consumer Protection and Government Services.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker, and I am thrilled to get an infrastructure question. By the actions in the chambers over the last month or two, it seems very unimportant to the other side. So let me just remind folks on the other side of the House that we have invested $500 million into transportation infrastructure this year. We increased the funds for maintenance to address infrastructure deficit by almost $8 million this year. And so we're pretty proud, actually, of what we're doing on this, and can't wait to answer the next question.
The honourable member for La Vérendrye on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. My question was around capital investment, and that's the concern around those cuts. There are many infrastructure projects across my constituency in our province that are essential to the growth and prosperity of both. These are projects that have support of Manitobans, but have seen nothing but silence from this government. Let's start with my constituency. Can the minister tell the people of Manitoba whether the RTAC expansion to Highway 201 and 311 will be completed in this term of government?
Here, here.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, Consumer Protection and Government Services.
Again, I thank the member opposite for the question, and again, it's another opportunity to talk about the important transportation infrastructure upgrades that are happening in the province. In his previous question, the member asked about the previous government's 5-year capital plan. I'm very excited that our multi-year plan will be released sometime in the next couple of months, and so I'm looking forward to show, and I thank him for the opportunity to get to talk about that and announce it today. And so that's something he can look forward to see what projects are coming online over this construction period.
The honourable member for La Vérendrye on a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's concerning that Manitobans are going to know after we've wasted a complete construction season what the plan is moving forward. This minister refused to commit to much-needed upgrades in the city of Winnipeg, like the Chief Peguis Trail and the Kenaston expansion. Winnipeggers are concerned with the lack of commitment. Our government planned a full 10-year strategy to achieve freeway status on the perimeter, with long-term projects at the St. Anne interchange and the Waverley intersections now in limbo under the NDP government. Will this NDP minister help grow the city of Winnipeg and make these necessary road upgrades?
Nice.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, Consumer Protection and Government Services.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. To address the questions about the perimeter, all projects are proceeding as scheduled. There's no question you could actually take a drive around the perimeter and see some of that for yourself. I know I have had that opportunity. But let's be clear, Honorable Speaker. If there are any problems with highways in this province, it's due to 7.5 years of cuts from the previous government. Yeah. Many of our highway projects will have to be moved up in the schedule because of how badly they've broken down, because they have been ignored and not taken care of under the previous government. That means that we have to rearrange plans.
Your time has expired. The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Lake Winnipeg sustains over 23,000 residents who live in 30 communities along its shores. About 800 commercial fishers operate on Lake Winnipeg every year, and the pollution crisis is harming communities. Nutrient target regulations have been proposed for years to establish phosphorus and other nutrient reduction targets. Despite continued contamination, we are still left questioning whether government is even willing to establish targets to reduce the amount of toxicity in our lake. Does the government plan to enact nutrient reduction targets on Lake Winnipeg, and if so, when?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank my colleague for the question on the environment. Unfortunately, in this House, I don't get the opportunity enough to talk about the environment because we don't get any questions from the opposition. The health, as I've said before, the health of our waterways and the health of Lake Winnipeg are a top priority for me and for our government. And our record on water is clear already, Honourable Speaker. In 7.5 months, we have signed an MOU to protect the Seal River watershed in northern Manitoba. And our record is also that we have refused a silica sand mining license to a company that was going to drill through the aquifers here in Manitoba, putting the drinking water of Manitobans at risk. We will always prioritize the health and safety of our water and of Manitobans first and foremost.
Time is expired. The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, since February, nearly 100 Olympic-sized swimming pools of diluted sewage has leaked into the Red River, and we have 2 more Manitoba First Nations who have filed lawsuits over the sewage spills. We have yet to know the full extent of the damage to wildlife, but we know that it has been 17 years since the acceptable guidelines on mercury and heavy metals were provided to Manitobans. What is this minister's timeline on when a new report on mercury and heavy metals in fish will be produced?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Again, I thank the member for the important environmental question. And again, this is an issue that we take very seriously when it comes to nutrient loads in Lake Winnipeg. We know that the city of Winnipeg is the single largest source of nutrient loads that are going into Lake Winnipeg. And we have taken action already. On top of commencing an investigation into the sewage spills that the member talks about, we have also directed the department to issue an environmental protection order to the city of Winnipeg to make sure that they get to work right away. And we have also invested an initial $10 million to help the city of Winnipeg do that work. There's more work to do, there's more work to come, and we are very excited to work with both the City of Winnipeg and the federal government. Perhaps the member opposite could speak to some of her colleagues in the federal government and
Member's
get
time is
that help
expired.
underway.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Excess nutrients caused by pollution affects fish and wildlife, but also toxic blue-green algae blooms on Lake Winnipeg's beaches. The previous NDP government set conditions of the North End Water Pollution Control Plant for total phosphorus limits. However, every year since then, the total phosphorus concentration exceeded the limits by over 3 times. What is this minister doing to ensure that the North End treatment plant comes into compliance with the terms set out by their own government?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Again, thank you for the important environmental question. Our government is going to be working hard with the City of Winnipeg, with the federal government, to make sure that we can put the necessary regulations, enforcements in place to make sure that this important issue is addressed. But again, you know, that this file, Lake Winnipeg file, has been neglected for 7.5 years under the previous government. 1/3 of the department was slashed. That left environmental site inspections cut in half. Their record on the other side of the House is abysmal. On this side of the House, we're a collaborative government. We are working with First Nations. We are working with fisheries. We are going to find a solution to this problem. We are going to take action on behalf of all Manitobans.
The honourable member for Radisson.
Honourable Speaker, retail crime has been on the rise, no thanks to the serious negligence of the failed Stephenson government. We have heard from small business owners, from law enforcement, and many other community members at our recent Public Safety Summit. It's why our government is responding to these real immediate concerns with real immediate action for community safety and protections for small businesses. Can the Minister of Justice tell Manitobans more about the work of his department and how we are refusing to stand by on retail crime?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member for Radisson for that important question. I shared with the House earlier, and I wanted to reiterate our government's action in response to the incidents of crime, including retail crime recently here in Winnipeg. Our government is working with the Winnipeg Police Service to immediately provide new funding to put more units on streets and increase police resources to address specific areas of need, including retail theft in the coming months. Whereas the previous government ignored the root causes of crime, refused to work with any partners, and froze funding for law enforcement year over year, our government will not concede any ground when it comes to public safety. Shoplifting, threatening workers, putting businesses, jobs, and families at risk will never be okay.
Right on. The honourable member for Selkirk.
Honourable Speaker, when the federal government limited international students, they left it up to this minister to decide how Manitoba's share would be allocated. It was her decision to give the University of Winnipeg an increase, and her decision to target faith-based organizations which fulfill much-needed jobs here in Manitoba. Many Manitobans want to know why the minister picked winners and losers to such an extent.
The Honourable Minister of Advanced Education.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I commend the member for getting the facts straight that it was absolutely a federal government decision that came down. We worked quickly to implement a policy that would ensure that all institutions felt the loss the least. And I will say once again that our government invests in post-secondary. We continue to invest in education. We will support Manitobans through that. And we will, the member opposite from Fort White is heckling me, as he always does. And I want to make it known that the member from Fort White continues to bully me on the record.
The time for oral questions has expired. Petitions, the Honourable Member for Springfield-Rashad.
I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. These are the reasons for this petition. 1. Beginning March 17, 2024, persons struggling with mental health as their sole condition may access medical assistance in dying unless Parliament intervenes. 2. Suicidality is often a symptom of mental illness, and suicide is the second leading cause of death for Canadians between the age of 10 and 19. 3. There have been reports of the unsolicited introduction of medical assistance in dying to non-seeking persons, including Canadian veterans.
Order, please. Order, please. I would remind all honourable members that when the speaker is standing, they should stop talking. And I would ask all honourable members to quit hollering back and forth across. A member's trying to read a petition. I can't hear him. The honourable member for Springfield Rashad.
Start over again.
4. Legal and medical experts are deeply concerned that permitting Canadians suffering from depression and other mental illnesses to access euthanasia would undermine suicide prevention efforts and risk normalizing suicide as a solution for those suffering from mental illness. 5. The federal government is bound by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to advance and protect the life, liberty, and security of its citizens. 6. Manitobans consider it a priority to ensure that adequate supports are in place for the mental health of all Canadians. 7. Vulnerable Manitobans must be given suicide prevention counseling instead of suicide assistance. 8. The federal government should focus on increasing mental health supports to provinces and improve access to those supports instead of offering medical assistance in dying for those with mental illness. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. 1. To urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to stop the expansion of medical assistance in dying to those for whom mental illness is the sole condition. 2. To urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to protect Canadians struggling with mental illness by facilitating treatment, recovery, and medical assistance in living, not death. This is signed by Marjan Sarna, Madeleine Dumont, Lorraine Jochlet, and many, many other Manitobans.
No further petitions, grievances, orders of the day, government business. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Which, Honourable Speaker, I'm tabling a revised estimates sequence for today only.
All right. So, as agreed to by the House on May 21st, 2024, this afternoon the House will first debate the report stage amendment sponsored by the Honourable Minister of Advanced Education and Training to Bill 10, the Advanced Education Administration Amendment Act, under the following debate provisions. 1. The amendment sponsor may speak for up to 10 minutes. 2. A member from the official opposition may speak for up to 10 minutes. 3. The independent member may speak for up to 10 minutes. And I shall put the question. The Honourable Minister of Advanced Education and Training.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I move, seconded by the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, that Bill 10 be amended to Clause 2, Bracket 2, Sub A, by replacing the proposed subsection 2.3, Bracket 6 with the following. Ministerial Directive Repolicy 2.3, Bracket 6. If the Minister determines that an institution is not in compliance with this section and the regulations made under Clause 12, Bracket B.1, the Minister may issue a directive to the institution specifying Sub A, the action the institution must take, and Subclause B, the time determined by the Minister to be reasonable in the circumstances within which the institution must take the action. Public notice of directive 2.3, Bracket 6.1. The Minister must make the directive publicly available in any manner the Minister considers appropriate. Ministerial action failure to comply 2.3, Bracket 6.2. If the Minister determines that an institution has not complied with the directive within the time specified, the Minister may direct the Minister of Finance to deduct any amount from any grant requisitioned for the institution under Section 9.1 or 9.6. Sub B, and the proposed subsection 2.3, Bracket 7, by striking out subsection Bracket 6 and substituting subsection Bracket 6.2.
It has been moved by the Honourable Minister of Advanced Education, seconded by the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change, that Bill number 10 be amended in Clause 2, Bracket 2, A, by replacing proposed subsection 2.3, Bracket 6 with the following. Dispense. The amendment is in order. The floor is open. The Honourable Minister of Advanced Education.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. I'm pleased to rise today for the report stage amendment of Bill 10, the Advanced Education Administration Amendment Act. This bill amends the Advanced Education Administration Act. The foundation for Bill 10 is the safety of students. These amendments are about ensuring our institutions have the tools to keep our institutions safe, our students safe. I would like to extend my heartfelt thank you to the participants of the Social and Economic Development Committee for their review and input on this bill, and to all the stakeholders who took the time to share their perspectives. We have listened to these perspectives and can assure our academic communities that our government is committed to respecting academic freedom and institutional autonomy. These are not up for debate with our government. The foundation for Bill 10 is the safety of students. These amendments to the Act are about ensuring our institutions have the tools to keep students safe. Currently, not all post-secondary institutions are covered by the Act have the same level of checks and balances. And we know that there are gaps. Families need to know that students are safe wherever they choose to study, and regardless of whether they are in the classroom, on campus, on a work practicum, or work placement, any place that a student is learning, they deserve to be safe. The current Act does not have any avenues for recourse. We are proactively ensuring we have the mechanisms to hold institutions to account. We are moving an amendment to the Advanced Education Administration Amendment Act, which will provide further transparency and ensure a progressive approach to compliance. Specifically, we have added in new provisions that outline earlier steps the minister must take to support compliance, including a ministerial directive. The additional amendments clarify that adjusting a grant would be a last resort, and there would be significant work with an institution to promote compliance before any consideration of a financial penalty. Every minister of the Crown must act in the public good, and in consultation with folks through committee and in conversations, it became clear that there was some question about how and when a minister may use their authority to revoke a grant or claw back a grant. And I just want to be abundantly clear that it is never in the public interest to arbitrarily make cuts. We've seen the damage that has been done to institutions because of this, and really at the forefront of all of this is student safety. I want to say to the institutions and to the students that this is an opportunity for us to work together as partners to create positive change against sexual violence for the well-being of all of our students, faculty, staff, and communities. I look forward to the passage of this bill. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm proud to stand once again today and put some words on the record. During the evening that we went over this bill, there was 15 presenters registered, and out of the 15, the 11 that did speak all spoke against this bill, talking about this bill being a tremendous overreach, not required. Several times throughout the evening, this was referred to as a dictatorship, a tyranny. They talked about the fact that this government is reaching for items that they do not need. They're using a heavy-handed approach when in fact they have the tools at their disposal to ensure the safety of the students. Every member who spoke that evening spoke of the utmost care for the students that are in the school system, and we share that. We absolutely want to make sure that every student has the ability to attend university, college, or any training institution to feel safe, to think about their future, and not worry about any sexual violence or harassment. The Conservative government introduced a legislation that is already on the record. It is there. The schools are required to demonstrate and report any activities that happen that have to do with violence, sexual harassment. The policies are to be adhered to and made public. The policies that are there need to be transparent and reviewed on a 4-year basis. What was being brought forward was a heavy-handed stick to make sure that this complies. Compliance is important, but the tools are there. There is the ability right now of many of the schools have a lot of members on their board who could absolutely vote in favor by the government telling them so. There's, in the bill briefing and during that evening, we had conversations about if any schools were deemed that required this, and the answer again was no. When asked about this, it was assured to the members this was not to be any form of punishment, and hopefully it wasn't never required. And although that may be true, the legislation that's being brought forward is extremely heavy-handed, without any appeal process, without any monetary range of where that comes from. And I had said at the time, and it was also said by people presenting, that it becomes judge, jury, and executioner to determine what is right or wrong. So we have several points that we have here. First, we want to be very, very clear that the safety of every student is paramount for every member in this House. The safety of the students from every presenter in every school and institution I have spoken with has also said that their safety is paramount. They want nothing more. It was brought up at that evening that it says the bill in its current form is simply too vague. Its silence on criteria that would enable the minister to cut an operating grant is also potentially would entail a reduction of a grant to zero, thereby risking the closure of an institution. It also went on further and said their concern was the bill risks incentivizing the very problems it seeks to address. It said it was reminded of a quote from one of the students at the Brandon University regarding the complaints against the soccer coach and the university's failure to report it. Basically saying that if you have something that you need to bring forward, and if you bring it forward not at the right time, you could be punished, then you may not want to bring it forward at all. And although that seems inherently wrong from the values that we have, because again, we want to protect children, so we want to make sure that legislation is brought forward. We recently went through a pandemic. There's been a pandemic where people couldn't gather for weeks and months, and even some cases years. To review a policy on a 4-year basis without any consideration of leniency for external events that may happen seems a little arbitrary. To have a policy that somebody could not get together but meaningfully had the information prepared and they're doing their due diligence to get this done, but they just didn't have it done. That means on day one after the deadline came, the minister could go out and cut 100% of their funding without any recourse. And the schools were very clear. We had people from the University of Manitoba, University of Winnipeg, University of Brandon, St. Boniface University. We had people from the colleges attend. We had a lot of private citizens that were bringing forward their concerns based on their institutional information that they know inherently that the government needs to respect the autonomy of every single school. And I understand the minister rightfully and dutifully feels the importance of protecting students. And we all feel that importance. And for that, I give her great credit for that. But we need to make sure that we take a look and address these concerns on a measurable basis, that we don't overstep our authority with a big stick and do it with threats. We need to work with the institutions to make sure that the sexual violence and sexual harassment policies are done effectively on time, and working with them, perhaps setting up a schedule that 6 months prior you start inquiring with the institutions and where they're at on that. Do they need some help? Where do they need to go? We heard several times throughout that evening where the minister simply asked the presenters, how should I do my job? What would you do if you were me? What would you put in the policy if you were me? I was absolutely shocked. Why would we be asking other people how to do their job? Especially since every one of these presenters said there was zero consultation. And consultation isn't sending a letter after the fact saying we're bringing forward this bill. Okay? Consultation is done before the bill is presented to get the people in the room, get them on the phone, get them to engage in effective dialogue to say, this is what we're proposing, how does this affect the school, how does it affect the student body, have all the people come together, all the stakeholders that are affected by this bill, and to say, what do we need to do to move forward and make this happen? They would have discovered very quickly that every one of the schools they would have talked to would have cried wolf very, very quick. They would have said, this is absolutely ridiculous. It is not needed. We haven't heard of one single incident from this government that says this is a requirement. Well, the intent may be good. We need to make sure that we work with the universities, the colleges, and all levels of our schools to ensure the safety, but to do that in a collaborative way, to make sure that we have all members and all stakeholders at the table to discuss what's going on. I've got several pages here where they talked about all the different issues that they face, and every single one of the presenters said, this is not the way to go. There are several different ways that this government and this minister can present their argument and have everybody achieve the same goal by doing it in a manner that brings forward proper dialogue, not by threats or coercion of taking away funds, not by removing an appeal process, not by having any say from any other institutions. This bill is against what they deserve.
Members' time has expired. The question before the House is the report stage amendment to Bill 10, the Advanced Education Administration Amendment Act. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? I heard a no. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. In my opinion, the ayes have it. The honourable member for Spruce Woods.
On division, please, Honourable Speaker.
On division. No. So, the motion was passed on division. As agreed by the House on May 21st, 2024, the House will now resolve into Committee of Supply. Will the Deputy Speaker, please take the chair?
Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now consider the estimates of the Department of Finance. Does the Honourable Minister have an opening statement? No, so does the official opposition critic have an opening statement? The member for Fort White. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. I'll keep my opening statements relatively quick. Just want to thank the minister and his department officials for being here today when they come in. Looking forward to getting some good dialogue, good conversation, good questions and answers hopefully today for the betterment of the people of Manitoba. Looking forward to really engaging in some in-depth conversation around what's in this budget, what does it mean for Manitobans, and what we can expect from this NDP government. I also want to be clear and say that we'll try to keep the questions moving forward. I'm not going to go on a preamble for 5 minutes like I've seen other departments do or other critics and ministers do. I will try to get to the questions as quickly as possible with a short preamble. I hope the minister can do the same thing and hopefully answer the questions directly. For Manitoba, we have a lot to cover. This is a very extensive budget estimates period that we're going to go through. So I will, ask the minister kindly if we can please remember that. I will also try to indicate to the minister and department which areas I'm going to be focusing on moving forward. So, today's the first day, first time we've had a chance to have a conversation, but going forward I would hopefully at the end, if I remember, if the minister remembers, to give them a heads up on where we're kind of going, just so they can prepare answers and we can make the best of our time and have an efficient day, getting some good stuff on the record. With that, I want to say again, thank you to the minister, his staff, everyone that works in the building, clerks, chairperson, honorable chairperson, for this and for my colleagues and for the minister's colleagues as well. So with that, 2 minutes, let's get down to business.
We thank the critic from the official opposition for those remarks. Under Manitoba practice, debate on the minister's salary is the last item considered for a department in the Committee of Supply. Accordingly, we shall now defer consideration of line item 7.1, bracket A, contained in Resolution 7.1. At this time, we invite Ministerial and opposition staff to enter the chamber, and I would ask the minister and critic to please introduce their staff in attendance.
One more chair. Oh, never mind, sorry. Never mind.
Honorable Minister of Finance.
It's not working, so that's fine.
Honorable Minister, would you like to introduce your staff?
Sorry about that. So I'd like to start by welcoming and introducing our wonderful staff here, some of whom are with TBS, others with Finance, starting with our Deputy, Sylvester Kamlodi, Matt Wiebe from Treasury Board Secretariat, and Ann Liebfried from Finance. Delighted that they're here to help me provide good information to Manitobans today.
Thank you. And the Honourable Member for Fort White.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Chairperson. I just got one staff here with me today, and Duncan Hamilton, the best researcher in this legislative building. So happy to have him along for the ride.
In accordance with Sub-Rule 78, bracket 16, during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner, with questions put on the resolution once the official opposition critic indicates that questioning has concluded. The floor is now open for questions. The honourable member for Fort White.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Chairperson. As I said in my opening remarks, I'm going to try to get down to some questions right away without long preambles and kind of outline from the Minister and his department where we're going to be going today. So today, the focus, I think, mostly will be on the fuel tax, holiday fuel tax questions, and then follow that with education, and then hydro after that. So just to give the Minister and his team a little bit of heads up and some professional courtesy on where we're going. So with that, the first question, I know the Minister has talked extensively on the fuel tax holiday and what that means for Manitobans. So in the Ministers, and one thing I also want to say, sorry, in the preamble I forgot to mention earlier, is that the Finance Department, as the Minister knows, we've touched a lot of different topics. Finance, everything in this province essentially flows through finance, whether it's education or justice, healthcare. I mean, you name any aspect of the province flows through justice, and it's all outlined within the budget. So the conversation will be a bit of a global discussion at times, because it does all flow through finance. That being said, this question in regards specifically to the fuel tax, in the estimates, the budget estimated increase in revenue for the fuel tax later this fiscal year when the fuel temporary tax holiday is to end, October 1st or September 30th. Can the Minister tell us what their new tax fuel rate will be? Will it be returning to the 14 cents a litre? And how much revenue does the Minister expect to generate from this fuel tax from October 1st until December 31st of 2024?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. I'm grateful to be here to have this opportunity to respond to important questions being brought forward by the member opposite. One of those, of course, these key areas that I'm looking forward to discussing today is on affordability. And of course, the member opposite the critic will know that we have done a lot of important work in improving affordability in a very short period of time since we've come into government here in Manitoba. Shortly after we were elected, we of course made it a top priority to respond to the affordability challenges that we knew Manitobans were facing and had been facing, unfortunately, for some time due to inaction on the part of the last government. And so in response to that, again, shortly after we got in, we did that important work of focusing in on how we could bring relief to Manitobans who'd been facing years of unattended to increases in their costs, especially when it comes to energy costs. And we know that one of the biggest costs that Manitobans face in this province when it comes to energy is, of course, the cost of buying liquid fuels or diesel fuels. And that extends especially to those folks, Manitobans living in rural and northern communities where they have to travel long distances, where the reality of day-to-day life is that you have to go, in some cases, long distances to get to work, to get to your kid's hockey game, to get to the grocery store. And we know in speaking with folks across rural and northern Manitoba and having conversations with them about the work that we've done since coming into government, that this has been super meaningful for a lot of families. And I know my colleagues and I, when we do head to communities across the province, but again, especially in those rural and northern communities, we hear about this. We hear how important this fuel tax holiday has been for folks who've been struggling for a long time but weren't getting that help. And one of the reasons I just want to highlight this measure was so beneficial is because it deals with the reality of cash flow challenges, the week to week cash flow challenges that many families face, and that this puts money directly in their pockets that help them to deal with those bills on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis, day-to-day basis. And so that's one of the reasons why this measure is so, I think has been so impactful, is that it works immediately to start putting money into the pockets of Manitobans. And so we do know, and this was spelled out very clearly, or has been spoken about in this House, that we know that the estimated savings to a family with 2 vehicles is about $250 for a 6-month period, or of course $500 on an annual basis. So that benefit really does add up for folks. $250 over a 6-month period, and of course we've committed to 9 months. We had the initial 6-month holiday that was put in place, and then of course in our recent budget, I know our team, we're very proud to announce that we were going to be extending that for 3 more months. There was, of course, concern that some of the issues with the fuel pipeline serving Manitobans about the potential impacts of that, and so this was one measure that, in addition to responding to affordability challenges, also helped to provide a bit of a policy to ensure we mitigated or responded to risks of fuel prices spiking in response to that. We haven't seen that, thankfully. But we know that it was a really important measure to extend that and bring those savings to Manitobans. So going to the questions, the specific questions that were asked, what will we raise it to? At this point, we've committed to that extension, that 3-month extension, going out to the end of September. And we will be revisiting, this measure as we get closer to that date. And in terms of, the response to how much will be raised between October 1st and December 31st, well, that will be dependent on those decisions. So, of course, I can't provide an answer to the member on that specific question.
The honourable member for Fort White.
Well, Chairperson, I thank the Minister for that response, and in my preamble I had mentioned that I'm going to try to get to questions quickly, and that I'd appreciate if the Minister wouldn't spend 5 minutes and do a 5-minute speech about talking about all the stuff he's doing, and when I answer the questions. And I was watching the clock, and he took 4 minutes and 20 seconds. I believe Manitobans should know this. 4 minutes and 20 seconds, and then he finally answered the question in the last 40 seconds. So if we can please stay focused on answering the question. I've heard the Minister, and Manitoba's heard the Minister talk about affordability and talk about the measures they're doing, and that's all great. But we're here to talk about questions and answers for committee, so Manitobans can hear. So again, I just politely and as respectfully as possible, please ask the Minister to just answer the question. So he did say that no fuel tax rate is set. Does the Minister have any forecasts of projected, based on various, I'm sure, algorithms they're running based on different tax rates, of what they are estimating or forecasting the revenue from the new tax fuel rate Does he have a range of what that would be from October 1st until the end of the fiscal year, March 31st, 2025? Does he have a range in which Manitobans can expect that, based on a wide variety of factors, of course, but I'm sure him and his department, great department, have forecasted that. So can the minister provide that for the House today of what that revenue would look like on this tax rate from October 1st until March 31st, 2025?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Person. Appreciate the question that was asked by the member in regards to what we would expect the range of revenues to be raised during that period. I believe he said October 1st to March 31st. Is that accurate, Critic? Yeah. So appreciate that question. It is really an extension of the previous question, which I believe was answered quite clearly. But there's some dynamics here that I think are worth just digging into, because if the question is fundamentally about what type of revenues we might expect during that period, regardless of the level of the rate of the fuel tax applied, there are a number of other dynamics that will impact consumption during that period. So those are some things I think that are worth just highlighting here. Like, for example, of course, the price of oil will alter people's consumption habits, and that's not something that we as a province have control over. Of course, the critic will understand that's a commodity, and there's all types of major economic, supply chain, global socioeconomic, security-related issues that impact the price of oil, that have that can have a major influence in terms of ultimately what that price of oil is, and then ultimately, the degree to which consumers are willing to purchase that product. So the question does bear consideration of those factors, and ultimately, those are things that we need to be mindful of in thinking about the answer there. Those consumption ranges, which could be impacted by changes to the price of oil, the volatility in those oil markets, those will translate into different levels of consumption. And that's something that we have to consider in thinking about the degree to which, or the revenues that could be generated during that period. Now, we know that we did, starting January 1st, bring in a fuel tax holiday that dropped the 14-cent a litre tax down to zero. Again, we know just how incredible of an impact that's had here in Manitoba. And if I could just quickly, we know that decision has been unbelievably consequential for Manitobans. And, I think about that Statistics Canada data that was released not too long ago, I believe it was last week, that spoke to that impact of that decision that our government made to bring those savings to Manitobans. The fact that we've had the lowest inflation in the country for 4 months in a row is clearly connected to the work that's being done by our government, and is clearly, at least in large part, or is driven in many ways by this decision to offer this fuel tax holiday to Manitobans. So we're seeing, just how broad of an impact that decision has had in saving folks money. The other Stats Can data that I think is worth referencing here that again we saw come forward last week was that we have some of the lowest food price inflation, or we had the lowest food price inflation in the country. Think about what that means, Chairperson, to Manitobans. We know that food costs are one of the biggest costs that families face. We know that we've seen, the costs of food go up for families across not only the province, but everywhere. And so to be able to see Stats Canada, that data of record, that empirical evidence that shows that not only is our fuel tax holiday bringing forward that inflation relief in a period of high inflation, I think it was 0.4%. I mean, that's completely, orders of magnitude lower than what we're seeing in other provinces. That's incredible. Think about what that means. So lowest inflation in Canada for 4 months, lowest food cost inflation. Those are major benefits. And of course, thanks to that measure, the lowest gas price inflation in the country. So the question, about what type of revenues we could expect from October 1st to the end of March, to the member's question, that will be, again, dependent on the range. If it remains at zero, hypothetically, should we make that decision, the revenue would be, of course, what it is. And it would go up based on whatever we decide to raise it to. So there's, at this point, no ability to answer that question specifically, but we are very proud of the affordability benefits that have been brought by our fuel tax holiday.
The Honourable Member for Fort White.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. And the minister, I'll give him credit. He is a crafty individual. First question, I had asked to please answer the question quickly, and he spent 4 minutes on a preamble and then 1 minute on the answer in the very end. And on the second question, he reversed it. He spent 1 minute and 40 seconds answering the question right off the bat, and then the remaining 3 minutes plus on a preamble about food costs and inflation. And I think it's important that Manitobans know. 2 questions now. The minister has spent over 80% of the time not answering the question. I'm asking to just ask a question, have it answered, and move on to the next one. There's a lot of questions to get through here, and the minister's doing a fine job answering the questions when he gets to them, and I appreciate that. It's hard to forecast. So that's the answer. Thank you. Let's move on to the next one. Cash flow changes. I get it. Let's move on to the next one. We don't need a 3-minute preamble, please, Minister. I'm asking for the sake of Manitobans. You're doing a great job answering questions here. I wish you did that in question period some more. But you're answering the questions, and I appreciate that. We just don't need the preamble, please. So I'll get to question number 3 now. So there is estimates for revenue based on this fuel tax that this minister has brought forward. So they have estimates for revenue, but not for expenses or the tax generated from that. You can't have one without the other. The minister, and I implore his department to please consider the fact that if you're gonna have estimates on revenue, you're gonna have estimates on expenditures as well. They're estimates. There's a range in estimates. That's how financial projections are put together for the fuel tax for the year, which you've done and presented in this budget. So was that estimate a fiction then? Is it a made-up number that you'd have no basis for? Because if you have a basis for the estimates of revenue, you would have a number for the estimates of expenses and tax revenue generated from that. That's what I'm asking. I've asked the minister 2 questions, and it doesn't seem like he wants to answer that. So I'll move on to the next one, unless he at a point wants to go back and ask that and say, we do have estimates of revenue. Here's our estimates of expenses, and here's what we're going to generate from these fuel taxes. Up to the minister if he wants to answer that for the people of Manitoba. Minister talks about commodities, and I knew he was going to bring up commodities because himself and the Premier love to talk about commodities as if they control commodities. And the minister knows that commodities are set by not the Premier and not this minister. They're set by the world. They're set by the free market. They're set by consumption. They're set by usage, and many other factors set price. So if there's a commodity, and the minister says based on consumption, if you look over consumption of fuel over the last few years, it's relatively stable. It's relatively consistent. There is a forecast to be generated from the consumption of fuel. From that, you'd be able to estimate how much taxes will be generated. Understanding it's a commodity, understanding that the price of oil fluctuates, these are all factors that we would have accounted for. I hope the minister would have accounted for that. So I'll ask one last time. Can the minister please, for the people of Manitoba and sake of purpose in the House today, when this fuel tax holiday is to end, the end of September, from October 1st until the end of the first fiscal year for this NDP government, March 31st, 2025, can the minister, based on consumption, which has been fairly stable, commodity pricing, which we understand fluctuates, have a range of what the tax fuel will generate for this province of Manitoba? Again, bearing in mind that the minister said it might be 0 cents, it might be 14 cents, it might be 16 cents, it might be 10 cents. What is this minister estimating for that fuel tax generation? Thank you.
Before I give the minister a chance to respond, I'll just remind all members to flow questions and answers through the chair. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chairperson. Might be good to just start by just highlighting for the member who stated that myself or the Premier on record have suggested that we control oil commodity prices. I don't know what he's referencing, or if that was just fun, or... Interesting. So, of course, the Premier and myself made no such commentary around being in control of global oil commodity pricing. That is, as I outlined in my last answer, something that is a function of broad-reaching forces in the economy that are far beyond the control of our Manitoba government. So that's just something I wanted to make sure we clearly set straight here on the record. So, you know, there's a page, of course, in the budget that I hope the member, in doing his research, has looked at this. He can see that in the 24-25 budget year, we have projected a certain amount for fuel tax revenue. That's spelled out very clearly on page 10 of the budget in the summary budget and financial updates document. That speaks to, you know, what we budgeted for this year. So my hope is, again, that the member has already done his research, he's looked at this, he's read the budget, he understands that number that we've budgeted for. And his question is fundamentally about, you know, what's the range of revenues we might expect from October 1st to the end of March. Well, again, I think, you know, going back to page 10 here in the summary of the revenues that we're expecting, we've said the number is 159 million, which is what we've budgeted for revenue. And of course, you know, depending on decisions made by government about what will happen beyond September 31st to the end of the fiscal, that will be, as I've said in my previous two answers, what will drive this number. And so the response is contingent, of course, not only on our decision, but it will, going back to what we've discussed so far here today, be related to oil prices and the market and how Manitobans are feeling about wanting to gas up their cars based on, you know, again, in part by those commodity prices. And so the answer to his question, again, we've budgeted 159 million for the 2024-25 budget year. Invite the member to go back to page 10 in the summary budget and financial update doc. And then from there, that number will be impacted by the decision that we make about how we're going to go forward on that fuel tax holiday. That decision is not a decision or is not something hypothetically we'll explore today. That's something that I know our government, we know the benefits that have been provided because of that fuel tax holiday. We understand it, we can see it with that information we saw last week from Stats Can. So we know just how beneficial this is, again, especially for folks who have to drive a lot, for regular families who depend on their cars to get around and again, get to the sports games, get to the Tims, get to work. So that decision will ultimately, that will be the ultimate determinant of the, you know, to the answer to the question that the member is seeking here, will be based on that decision point, which again, we're not going to be discussing hypotheticals here today about how we're intending to proceed there. What I can say is that we know just how impactful that fuel tax holiday has been. And so we will be looking at that decision, Chairperson, and we will be, of course, letting Manitobans know about how we're going to proceed when the time comes. Until now, we know that Manitobans stand to continue benefiting from that fuel tax holiday to the end of September. Again, this was a decision that we made knowing just how quickly that was going to help. And that's after many years of the previous government talking about helping. You know, they talked about their ideas about carbon pricing. They supported a carbon tax in Manitoba that would have ultimately raised those fuel prices for Manitobans. That's not what we're doing. we're working to do the opposite, which is to lower the cost of energy and liquid fuels for Manitobans.
The honourable member for Fort White.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Sorry, I dropped my piece of paper. I couldn't find it. So yeah, to clarify, the minister and the premier, when I was referring to commodity pricing, what they had said numerous times was they took credit, and I believe the minister has done it here today when they're taking credit, Chairperson, for the low price of gases in Manitoba, and saying that it's the NDP and this minister that are responsible for the low prices of gas in Manitoba. And we just heard clearly from the minister, thank you for clarifying for the record, that no, they do not control commodity pricing. So you can't take the credit for the gas price when it's low. The minister said it himself, he does not control the pricing of that. It is set by many more factors other than the premier and this. They can take credit for their gas tax cut that they want to claim as a big champion for the province, but they're going to increase taxes on Manitobans. And we'll get into bits of bill shortly where the minister has allotted himself powers to do this through regulation and not through legislation. But again, Minister, thank you for clarifying on the record. You do not control commodity pricing, so therefore you have no right to take credit when Manitoba has the lowest price of gas, fuel in Canada. And I'm glad you have now clarified that for all Manitobans. Thank you. Moving on to the next one, we talked about families driving their kids to practice. I drive my kid to hockey. He's got a hockey game tonight, and football on the weekend, and those savings making their way down to Manitobans. In our bill briefing and in committee, the minister had committed that his department had done research that these 14-cent savings would see their way down to Manitobans, and that he would be willing to share this research, these findings with us. And to this date yet, we still don't have that. So I'll ask the minister today, will he follow through on his commitment in bill briefing and committee to see the research and the studies and the data that supports these 14-cent savings are making their way down to Manitobans?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the critic for the question. Of course, I do have to start by responding to some of the critic's commentary there. This notion that we have somehow, we've made claims that aren't accurate here in regards to the benefits of our fuel tax holiday are specious at best. The member will know, of course, to be clear, we are not in a position to control global oil commodity prices. However, we are absolutely in a position to control the fuel tax rate that's charged to Manitobans. And that fuel tax rate and the lowering of that fuel tax rate has unquestionably had like a massive impact in lowering cost of living for Manitobans. One of the best sources of proof or places where that can be substantiated is through the Manitoba Bureau of Statistics. And the member might know this or maybe not, but that Manitoba Bureau of Statistics produces analysis that tracks a variety of items, costs that are fed into the CPI. And of course, a piece of that breaks out energy costs. And I would invite the member to look at that data. And again, it's publicly available, the Manitoba Bureau of Statistics website, where he'll see that, quite distinct from what he's claiming, the work that we've done in bringing in a fuel tax holiday has, again, empirically and statistically shown to reduce the cost of fuel to such an extent that Manitoba has the lowest fuel price in the country, month after month now. So to suggest that somehow, there's no relationship, as the member is, between that action we've taken. In fact, I find it kind of confusing as to why he's pursuing that line of argument. Obviously, reducing a fuel tax by 14 cents, he is going to have a direct impact on the cost of fuel for Manitobans. So I'm not sure what argument he's making, but what we know is that, again, statistically, he can go to the website of the Manitoba Bureau of Stats to see the unbelievable impact that our government's decision to offer that fuel tax holiday has had in lowering energy costs for Manitobans. I'd also invite the member, if he's interested, there's a CBC article, there's a quote from it that speaks to this, and I'm happy to point the member to where this article is coming from. It is CBC. It says, the quote, Stats Canada acknowledges in its report Manitoba's decision to remove the provincial gas tax temporarily beginning in January has contributed to its low inflation rate. So again, I know I don't blame the member for not wanting to repeat the positions of our government, or to repeat the great successes that I like to talk about and that my colleagues like to talk about that we're bringing forward to benefit Manitobans. But unfortunately, I don't think he's in a good position to deny what Stats Canada has to say about things. And I don't think he's in a good position to deny what Manitoba Bureau of Statistics has to say about the impacts of that great decision that we made. And so I don't know if he's got some insights that the rest of us don't have here, or he's running his own statistics agency on the side that's suggesting that what we're saying is not bear out in terms of fuel tax holiday resulting in a huge decline in fuel costs for Manitobans. But again, he's got to contend with reality here, which is that Stats Canada and the Manitoba Bureau of Statistics, not exactly agents of government, are saying empirically that it's clear. The jury's in. The verdict is clear. We are saving people that money. That holiday is that 14 cent a liter holiday is being passed on into the pockets of Manitobans who need it. That's a great benefit. So I don't know what it is about that he doesn't want to support, or exactly what he's contending or what he's arguing here. But look, it's pretty clear. That decision has resulted in huge financial benefits for the Manitobans who need it most.
The honourable member for Fort White.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and I want to thank the Minister for another 5-minute answer again. I am pleading with the Minister now for the 4th time to please answer the question so we can move on quickly. We have lots of questions to get through. We're not even an hour into estimates. We have a lot to get through, so I am pleading with him. I am imploring him to please answer the question, and let's move on to the next one. We don't need a history lesson or eloquented preamble like the Minister loves to do. So, in the last question, I asked the Minister point blank. At bill briefing and at committee, this Minister and his department had said they had research. They had quantifiable research that showed the 14-cent savings would go directly to Manitobans, and the data showing that savings would go on to Manitobans. They said at committee that they would provide us with that data. They have not provided us with that data since. So I'm asking the Minister if he can please answer quickly, not for 5 minutes, will he be willing to provide the data like he said he would on this 14-cent savings that are being directly passed on to Manitobans and what effect that's having to Manitobans? Where's the data behind this? He said he had it. He said he had the research. He hasn't provided it yet. Simply asking if he would do what he said he would, what he will follow through on what he said he would do.
the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, and I want to thank the critic for this important question about the impacts of our fuel tax holiday that we've brought to Manitobans. The question he's asking is fundamentally, are the savings that are being generated by the fuel tax holiday actually being passed on to Manitoba consumers? And I'm very happy to say that we can see very clearly in data that is exactly the case, that we are seeing, if not all, the vast majority of that holiday ending up in Manitobans' pockets. And again, I'll remind the member, it's the total savings for a family with 2 vehicles, 6 months, $250. And that's a lot of money for the average family in this province, and we know how helpful that is for families. And something that I haven't touched on here today that I do think is worth also expanding on is that we know that the fuel tax holiday isn't just a benefit to consumers and to the average Manitoban, it's also a benefit for businesses. And we've heard that in speaking with businesses across the province. I know during our pre-budget consults, I had really remarkable opportunities to talk to people in every corner of Manitoba. And in those discussions and those visits to communities around the province, we spoke with, of course, not only everyday Manitobans, but we also had the great opportunity to speak with chambers and speak with business people and hear from them about what that fuel tax holiday means for them, especially in a context where those businesses themselves, many are continuing to face challenges post-COVID in getting back to where they were pre-pandemic, and are facing elevated costs themselves. And when it comes to a number of different areas, and of course, those areas track with the kinds of cost increases that all Manitobans have faced. But we know that holiday is bringing big benefits to Manitoba businesses. We're seeing, I think, some evidence of a relationship between that fuel tax holiday and food price inflation. That Stats Canada data perhaps isn't conclusive on that front, but we can see it's a big difference in Manitoba relative to other jurisdictions in Canada, that we are seeing lower food price inflation and ultimately, of course, lower inflation overall being driven by that decision. And that's benefiting so many Manitobans, and it is benefiting many Manitoban businesses. To the question, getting down to the question of data or substantiation of how, whether or not that fuel tax holiday is being put in the pockets of Manitobans, I've already highlighted one key source of data that I would encourage the member to visit. It's publicly available. He can go check it out tonight if he wants when he gets home over a glass of tea. And that is the Manitoba, or whatever his beverage of choice may be. Maybe it's, I don't know, juice, coffee. But he can visit that Manitoba Bureau of Statistics site. And one thing, there's a data point on there that I want to share with him. Again, it rolls up the various items that contribute to CPI and that ultimately speak to inflation. And one of those key items is gasoline. And that website will show him that there's been a 12.7% change to the negative over a 12-month period on gasoline prices. That is statistically incredibly significant, and it speaks to the impacts of that fuel tax holiday. There are also a number of publicly available fuel price tracking websites that the member and all Manitobans can go visit to see the impact of that fuel tax holiday. That speaks. You can see it. Again, I encourage the member to go check it out. He can go visit Calibrate or Gas Buddy. Those are two good sites he can go look at, and he'll see if he goes on to visit those sites tonight. Again, maybe he will when he gets off work this evening. He'll go and spend some time and go see that it's crystal clear. When you look at gas price tracking in provinces across the country, you see what happened January 1st, effectively, and he'll see this in the graphs, a precipitous decline in the cost of fuel in Manitoba by about 14 cents. And effectively, that's held, it's tracked. Our fuel prices have more or less been 14 cents cheaper than neighboring provinces since we brought that in, and we're proud of that.
The honourable member for White.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I want to thank the Minister for her offer of tea later. I do enjoy drinking tea, so thank you for that. And I will thank the Minister for answering a question that he answered in 30 seconds. He didn't need the extra 4 minutes and 30. I'm imploring the Minister to please, I see him looking up at the clock with 5 seconds left, running out the entire clock. We're not here to waste time, we're here to answer questions. So please, I'm going to implore the Minister again. He's answering, well, that last one, he kind of beat around it, so if we can just answer the question, would be great. Now, to be clear, the question was asked, will he share the data? The Minister shared anecdotal data of savings being passed on to Manitobans in bill briefing, and in committee meetings, they said they had research and concrete data that they would share with us, and to say that those savings make it down without providing anything, I think is a farce, and I think Manitobans can see through that. What we can see, though, is, and I've tabled in the House numerous times for the Minister, and Manitobans can go online and see this, and maybe I'll post this later as well today, that within 3 weeks of this Minister and this NDP government putting in their gas tax holiday stunt, that the 3 weeks the gas prices had gone back up to what they were, higher than what they were on January 1st. And the Minister referenced Gas Buddy to go to that website, and he can go to that website, his department can go there and take a look. Those savings evaporated within 3 weeks, and gas has continued to climb since then. So you can say, where is the savings? Now, the Minister had referenced earlier, asked what my line of questioning was around commodity pricing, because commodity pricing sets the prices for such things as crude oil. That remains stable. So if commodity pricing stayed stable and this government enforced a 14-cent tax savings, but then a month, 3 weeks later, those prices were higher and yet the commodities stayed the same, you would have to ask, where are those savings to Manitobans? And the answer is, they're not. They're gone. It's smoke and mirrors used by this Minister. I've asked 3 times now to provide the data to show where the savings are. He references $250. Yes, we have lower prices in Manitoba than across other parts of Canada, but again, the Minister in the second answer said he does not control the pricing of commodities. So you can't take credit when the gas price is low. You have nothing to do with it, especially when the commodity stays the same or minimal fluctuation, and yet the gas prices go above that. That is literally proof, evidence that this is not true. That what is being touted as a massive win for this NDP government is actually nothing but smoke and mirrors, and their savings aren't being passed on. What is happening is that this gas stunt holiday is costing Manitobans in this Minister's own budget $160 million approximately. $160 million. And you know what they cut from the budget, Honorable Chairperson? $160 million from infrastructure spending. What else did they cut from this budget? And we'll get into that as we have, I think 100 hours or 30 hours to get through here in finance. So we'll move on from that, but I want to be clear for the record that Minister said doesn't control commodity pricing. That's remained stable, and yet the savings have gone away, and he will not share the concrete data with us on that his department said they had before they put this into place. Moving on to the budget bill and BITSA. Simple question for the Minister. Hopefully answer this quickly. We don't have to spend 5 minutes. In clause 8, bracket 2, it says, if a rate number 2, I'll go to the second line, the applicable rate for the fuel listed in that clause.
I'll just remind the member that questions about specific bills would be most appropriate in committee. Not in supply.
Supply is focused on the department.
Honourable member for Fort White.
Thank you, Chairperson. It's hard to ask a question in committee or about a bill that this government won't allow you to go forward and ask questions, for the Manitoba public to come forward and ask questions on bits of bill. So we'll digress from that line of questioning, since the government doesn't want Manitobans to come speak to bills. It's been clear. We've asked repeatedly in the House. We've asked repeatedly in the House, will he allow Manitobans to come speak to this? He said no. Premier has said no. They think it's okay to shove this through in a budget bill, that the minister has authority to increase taxes by regulation. So without commenting on that part of the budget bill, the simple question is, going forward, after September, October 1st forward, how does the minister propose that he is going to set the gas rate at that time?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to just, for whatever it's worth, point out that the member continues to waste about a minute every time he asks a question. So if he wants to speed it up or have this be more efficient, I encourage him to stop wasting time on that his preambles himself. One thing he said is, it's $160 million that we're wasting in doing this. It's essentially the summary of what his message was there. And I just want to take this opportunity to say we get it. We can tell you don't support the savings that we're bringing to Manitobans here. That's what you communicated there. And I think that's something that your constituents and Manitobans across the province would be interested to learn about, that you do not support the $160 million of savings that are going right into their pockets. So let's be clear about that. We've heard you today state that you do not support the fuel tax holiday. You believe it's wasteful, and you do not like that we're putting that money into Manitobans' pockets. That's what you've communicated here on the record in this chamber, and so I just want to highlight that I think a lot of Manitobans would be concerned to hear that that's your take on what we've done here, especially given how consequential this action has been in reducing inflation for Manitobans, and it's put such an enormous amount of money back in their pockets when they need it. They need that help right now. And I guess one of the main distinguishing features between the member's previous government and our government is that we recognize that. We recognize that that support is needed. And, they've heard it right from the critic here today. They've heard why they didn't get that help that they needed, because they didn't seem to think that that was needed or that wasn't important. It's no surprise that Manitobans didn't get any relief on their energy prices when that's the position, the opinion, the attitude of their critic and his colleagues and their previous government. So that cost Manitobans a lot of money because for 7.5 years, first they started out, of course, when it comes to energy prices, we know they came forward with their own version of the carbon tax. So the member, I know he probably will lean into the fact that he wasn't here at that time when his colleagues and his team brought forward a carbon tax, a made in Manitoba carbon tax, which would have increased the cost of gasoline, which would have increased the cost of diesel, which would have increased the cost of natural gas. His team brought that to the House, voted in support of it. That's cut and dry. There's no question that that's the record that they have when it comes to energy prices and the decisions that they made. They were seemingly focused, for whatever reason, I don't really understand why, on increasing those costs with a made in Manitoba carbon tax. So, the member likes to poke around at that and our positions and what things have been said, etc. Here's the reality. On the record, his previous government voted in favor of a made in Manitoba carbon tax, which would have raised the price of fuel. So not only does he not support putting these dollars back in Manitobans' pockets from this fuel tax holiday, he's also part of a team that fought to raise prices on Manitobans, raise their energy prices by fighting for a made in Manitoba carbon tax. We're not going to do that. We know that's not the right direction. And the member opposite has to account for that. He has to deal with the reality of his government's record and the work that they did to make life more expensive for folks. Going to this very important question of, and this is something I can't emphasize enough how seriously we take this, the importance of knowing that fuel tax holiday is actually ending up in Manitobans' pockets. I've already shown the member, I've told him, again, he seems to think that these are just sort of, NDP talk boxes, or I don't know how he wants to characterize them, but again, I can assure him they're independent organizations. I don't own Gas Buddy. I don't have any stocks in Calibrate. I don't know that any of my colleagues do. I don't think so. But they're independent sites that will show that those fuel tax savings are being passed on almost in their entirety right where they belong in the pockets of people who need it most.
The honourable member for Fort White.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. And Minister says I've been wasting 1 minute. Well, he's been wasting 5 minutes for every answer. On a preamble, it doesn't answer anything. The question I asked last was, will the minister tell Manitobans how he is going to set the fuel tax rate after October 1st? No answer. No answer at all on how he's going to set the tax rate. Ask him what's the forecast for spending or how much money is going to be from that tax. No answer. What's the low end forecast? No answer. He admits that he has no control over commodity pricing, and yet he wants to take claim when the gas prices are low in Manitoba. And when they're high, they're not his fault. We showed today, unequivocally, that those gas savings went away in 3 weeks. And yet commodity pricing stayed the same. Gas price is higher now. It may be lower in Manitoba than it is the rest of Canada, but he admits he does not control that. It's sad that when he talks about savings for Manitobans, the only thing this minister's brought forward is a temporary holiday. Holiday, holiday, holiday. He said it 10 times today. It's a holiday. It's going to come back up, and it's going to be set by this minister at the cabinet table. That's the authority he's giving himself. Removing Manitobans from that conversation. That is on the record today. Real savings for Manitobans. If this was $160 million of real savings to Manitobans, like the permanent tax savings the previous PC government did by lowering this NDP's 8% PST to 7%, this NDP raised it to 8%. We permanently dropped it to 7%. We eliminated the NDP death tax. We removed PST from Will's insurances. And ironically, the only thing this minister is advertising other than a holiday is the $5,000 average Manitoba's families will save due to the previous PC government. Those are permanent tax savings. I think the minister needs to differentiate between permanent and temporary. And holiday, as he said, it's a holiday. It's coming back. That's what we're talking about. And Manitobans deserve answers on how you're going to set that rate after October 1st. That is crucial to understanding how this minister is going to operate, and the powers he's giving himself, unprecedented to do whatever he wants, is of concern to Manitobans. Just like the $148 million tax increase that this minister is putting on middle-class Manitobans. Education and property tax, the largest tax increase in the history of this province done by this NDP government. Just like they increased the PST. Just like under this NDP government, Manitoba's hydro debt tripled to $25 billion that we are still digging ourselves out of. $148 million under this minister for education and property taxes increase. That is what is budgeted in their budget. The question for the minister is simple. That's for the full year estimate. So the question would be, what is, as this property tax is based on mill rates, is based on education taxes throughout the province, and we can get to that question a little bit afterwards on page 41 of minister's budget, where they talk about the mill rate of 11.7. 11.7 in 2023 is the rate they're using. Does the minister have a mill rate for 2024 average? Does he have a forecast for 2025? What is the education and property tax going to cost Manitobans in 2024-25? It's going to be higher than $148 million because, why? Houses are going up. Average house in Manitoba is getting more expensive. Under this minister, they're going to get higher. Yeah, and I am going on a speech because the minister's going to take the next 10 minutes and then we're done. So this is the last question I'll get for the day. If NDP colleagues on the side could understand how to do some simple math, they would understand that this is probably the best way to use the time. Because this minister will block me for the next 5 minutes from asking. So the question is, what is the rate going to be What will the education property tax be in 2025, 2026? And does the minister have real mill rates for 2024 and 2025? Because that's what's going to hit hardworking, middle-class Manitobans.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. It honestly makes me unbelievably happy to have a chance to talk about our homeowner affordability tax credit, because we know how much value that's going to provide for Manitobans across the province. What we've seen, actually, just offhand, I can say the impacts of this are going to be so enormous that there's a number of communities across Manitoba where residents will, almost 100% of residents will no longer be required to pay school taxes. That's especially true in rural communities across the province. Places like Dauphin, I think the number I heard was 99% of residents of Dauphin are going to pay no school tax as a function of this measure. And that's repeated over and over and over again in communities across Manitoba. Think about that, Chairperson, what that means for those families. We're talking about, in some cases, hundreds of dollars going into their pockets thanks to that decision. And I know the member opposite will have community members across his riding that, of course, are going to stand to benefit as well. And one question I have for him is, what does he say to those constituents when he's on the doorstep and they're talking about this measure? how does he hide from that? I mean, we know the number is the global number, estimated number. We've said it in the House. This isn't going to come as a surprise for the critic. 83% of Manitobans are estimated to do better as a function of that rebate. That credit. That is a massive majority of people across this province, and frankly, it's bringing help to those who really need that help. So what an unbelievable measure that is, and that's going to be a game changer for so many people in Manitoba, and again, a huge majority of people in the critics' riding and in all of his colleagues. I think when they hit the doorsteps this summer, they're going to have a lot of explaining to do about why they're not supporting this measure that is frankly is helping 83% of homeowners. It really is a remarkable thing that we've done, and what it does is it highlights our focus on affordability, and really that is the key focus of our last budget. The member will know we've had a great opportunity this afternoon to talk about the huge impacts of the gas tax holiday. I appreciate that he gave me almost an hour to talk about how we're putting those savings back in Manitobans' pockets. That was a remarkable opportunity he offered me here to highlight that. I mean, that is awesome that we got to talk about putting all those dollars back in people's pockets. I appreciate that he gave me that opportunity. And now here, I appreciate that he's giving me this opportunity to talk about this $1,500 homeowner affordability tax credit. These two measures are two measures that we've undertaken here of 21 new ways to save, including, and I'm going to mention this because the member opposite did mention this, they like to take ownership over the personal income tax changes, but I'll remind him they're not in government anymore. And those changes would not have been completed if our government did not make a decision to ensure that we bring that reduction in personal income taxes to Manitobans. That wasn't a decision that was made by the critic. It wasn't a decision that was made by his leader. It was a decision that was made by our government. And that decision is an important one because we know it put a significant amount of dollars in Manitobans' pockets, and we know...
The hour being 5 p.m., committee rise, call in the speaker. The hour being 5 p.m., the House is adjourned and stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.